Hi everybody, it's Neil Weichel with RE/MAX. As we go into fall and a market that has really changed a lot in a lot of ways, we're seeing a lot of mistakes being made. Mistakes being made by buyers, mistakes being made by sellers, and unfortunately mistakes being made by agents. Today we're going to talk about some of the bigger ones so that you don't get caught with those mistakes. Yeah, this is a tough one because we get called by buyers that are going through some poor experiences, and we want to go back in time and try to help them, remedy what was unfortunately maybe not the best decision. So there's two areas that I think if I were a buyer, I'd want to make sure I avoid. The first is we live in a world now where buyers actually sign a buyer-broker agreement, okay? In the past, that wasn't the case, but the last few years, you actually hire an agent to be your agent going out looking at homes and ultimately making offers. What happens is if you end up with one who isn't very good, is you're stuck. So don't do a buyer-broker agreement for more than 30 days. Any great buyer broker is happy to start with 30 days, see if it's the right fit, if they're helping you, if you feel good about them, and if necessary, you can always extend. So that's mistake number one. Don't do more than 30 days. The second mistake is actually a mistake that's very timely right now. We're all aware of how expensive it is to buy a home. Everything has gone up. And that means that as a buyer, you have to be very clear on what the costs of buying are going to be up front. Specifically, get your homeowner insurance quote in advance of making your offer, not once you're in escrow. Know every single cost. If you happen to be buying new construction, a lot of times the homeowner association fee will be subsidized by the builder, and then after you've been in the home a year or two, it goes up. Make sure you know in advance every dollar that you're going to be responsible for when you buy that new property. And then part of that, and this is really important, is knowing what kind of a market you're buying in. We have markets here in Santa Clarita that are literally flooded with new construction. If you're a buyer, you're going to want to know what's happening with prices, what's happening with all the properties that are available, what are the builders offering, what are the resale homes doing. Make sure your agent can guide you on the different markets because it can literally change from a mile away to the next neighborhood where all of a sudden it's much more of a seller's market and you think it's just like the neighborhood you just looked at and they're completely different. Local experience, local expertise, great track record, that's what buyers need to look for in their buyer broker. And then most importantly, don't sign up for more than 30 days. Last mistake, if you're buying condo or attached property, we have some changes with loans in those areas. I'm going to give you a term that's going to sound Greek, but a homeowner association certification. Get that before you open escrow. Know exactly what's coming down the road in that homeowner association before you buy into it. This is something that any good agent, any good escrow officer can provide up front so there's no surprises once you're in your new home. I think there's two areas here too. The first is about a year ago we did a video on how many homes came on the market but didn't sell, usually because they were priced too high and sometimes some other reasons too. This continues to this day even more so, and we're having sellers say, well, I tried to sell my home, it didn't work, I'm going to come back in 6 months when the market's going to be a lot better. Make sure you're talking to a local agent that really knows what's happening in your marketplace. We have certain marketplaces where it's very likely that the market not only won't be better in 6 months, it might be a little worse. We have other markets that are really good spring selling season markets, and it may very well be better in 6-8 months, but don't just assume that it will be. Know your market and know how it's different from some of the others. This is really important in today's real estate world. So number one is to know that. Number two, when you hire an agent, and boy do we see this a lot of times they'll use the agent that maybe helped them buy the home or maybe was recommended by a friend or somebody who just seemed like a really nice guy or gal. In this market, just putting your home up for sale does not guarantee you're going to see offers. And the evidence of that is how long some of these homes are taking to sell. So what I'm suggesting is have a series of questions for the agent. And some of the sellers, boy, they've got a great list for me when I sit down. Here's 3 that you'll want to ask. Number 1, how many homes have you sold in my neighborhood in the last 6 months? Number 2, how do the homes on your market analysis here that we're going over, the homes for sale and the homes that have sold, how do they compare to my home? Is my home better? What is my yard compared to their yard? How are they different? How are they the same? How can I feel comfortable with your pricing strategy? And then number 3, and this question is as important too, is where is my buyer likely to come from, Mr. Agent? If you have a lot of experience and you know that marketplace, you know that there are almost always certain areas to target your marketing to really get the move-up buyers, the move-down buyers, or the buyers moving in from out of the area. Last thing about this process of interviewing agents, we always give sellers 2 strategies when pricing a home. The first strategy is to price it a little lower, create more interest, and hopefully generate offers right away. The second strategy is more of a long-term strategy where you price it a little higher, saying, hey, I can always take my time. In a stable or appreciating market, strategy 2, a little higher is fine. In this market, almost always it's going to cost you time and money. Go with the more aggressive, lower price strategy to generate more interest. You'll ultimately sell for more money. I'll give you 2 that one's a pet peeve and one is a really big one. So the first one is I'm watching all these new listings coming on the market and every description is the same, and I mean every one, meaning the agents are simply using AI to tell the story about the house, okay? And it doesn't really help the buyer have any kind of an idea about how that property is unique, special, what makes it maybe worth a little bit more, what's extra about it that a simple computer algorithm can't describe to me. So that bothers me. I'm not saying there isn't a place for AI. I'm just saying that, you don't be so lazy. The second mistake is a much bigger one. So our market has shifted. It is much more of a balanced market, and yet at the same time, there are pockets where it's very much still a seller's market. This comes from a question I had from an agent, a pretty good agent that works down in the city, and had somebody that wanted to sell their home here in 5 Points and move down to the city. And he said, hey, I can sell your home. Now, this agent doesn't really have a lot of experience selling homes in Valencia, and especially in a new neighborhood like 5 Point. So he called me and said, hey, Neil, I see that you sold this house over on Charing Cross in the Summit, and it looked like it went over asking, and did you have multiple offers? Yes, we did. Well, I'm using that as a comp for my home in 5 Points, and this, friends, is the problem. These homes couldn't be more different. One is essentially new. The other is in a more established, mature neighborhoods. Even though they're a mile apart, he thought that they were pretty similar because the square footage was the same. Then you look at the marketplace. Lots of stuff for sale in 5 Point, virtually nothing in escrow, versus the Summit, nothing for sale, and everything that comes on the market sells right away. So this is the mistake that this agent is making. He's making the mistake of taking a listing he really shouldn't be. He's not familiar enough with the market, where the buyers are coming from, all the things that are important when you're guiding and representing a seller. So, agents, by all means, reach out to local experts for information, but if you're not really comfortable with the area, pass it along to somebody who is.